So this video is going to be about the organization of the brachial plexus, and we're going to have a look at the different components of the brachial plexus and how they come together to form the terminal branches, which are the nerves that will innervate the upper limb. So, as you may have heard, the brachial plexus is made up of 5 main components: the roots, the trunks, the divisions, the cords, and the terminal branches. Let's go step by step, beginning with the roots. So, the brachial plexus arises from the roots C5 to T1. When we say roots, we are referring to the ventral rami of the spinal nerves that are arising from these spinal levels C5 to T1. And these roots are going to help us form the trunks. For example, the C5 and C6 root is going to form the superior trunk. C7 on its own will continue as the middle trunk, and C8 and T1 will combine to form the inferior trunk. So that gives us 3 trunks arising from 5 roots. Now, each of these trunks is going to give off 2 divisions, an anterior division and a posterior division. So that's going to give us 6 divisions in total because there's 3 trunks. And these divisions will kind of rearrange themselves to help us form our cords. So let's just have a closer look at that. So as we can see, if we take the anterior divisions of the superior and middle trunk, we can form the lateral cord. And if we take all of the posterior divisions arising from each of the trunks, we can make our posterior cord, which is quite easy to remember because it's just coming from the posterior divisions from all the 3 trunks. And so what are we left with now? We've used the anterior division from the superior and middle trunk. We've used up all of our posterior divisions. So now all we're left with is the anterior division from the inferior trunk, which will go on as the medial cord. So that gives us 3 cords: lateral cord, posterior cord, and medial cord, arising from 6 divisions. Now, each of these cords will help us form our terminal branches, which are the nerves that will go and innervate different parts of our upper limb so that we can move our upper limb. So, the lateral cord will form the musculocutaneous nerve, and the lateral cord does help to form another nerve, but we'll touch upon that in just a second. Let's just move on to the posterior cord, which will form the axillary nerve and the radial nerve. And as I mentioned earlier, the lateral cord will help to form another nerve, and this nerve is the median nerve, which is also formed by the medial cord. And finally, the medial cord on its own will also give rise to the ulnar nerve. So that gives us our 5 main terminal branches, arising from 3 of our cords: the lateral, posterior, and medial cord. Let's just have a quick recap of all of this. So we have our roots, C5 to T1. C5 and C6 will form the superior trunk. C7 will form the middle trunk all by itself. And C8 and T1 will form the inferior trunk. Now, what do we have arising from our trunks? We have our divisions. So the anterior divisions of the superior and middle trunk will form the lateral cord. And if we take all of our posterior divisions, we can form the posterior cord. And now if we use up our anterior division from the inferior trunk, we can form the medial cord. And arising from our lateral cord, we have our musculocutaneous nerve. Arising from our posterior cord, we have our axillary and radial nerve. And the lateral cord and the medial cord together will help form the median nerve. And finally, we have our ulnar nerve arising from the medial cord. So this concludes my explanation of the brachial plexus and its basic organization. I hope this video was helpful to visualize this concept, and thank you for watching. Bye!